There exists a secret buried beneath centuries of deception, one that separates rulers from the ruled, the conquerors from the conquered. You were never meant to know it, and yet, those who do hold it wield an invisible force, bending the wills of others as effortlessly as the wind bends the trees. It is the key to absolute obedience, and it comes from a mind sharper than any blade, a man whose name still echoes and whispers among those who understand true power, Niccolo Machiavelli. You have been lied to about power. You were told that authority comes from fairness, kindness, mutual respect. But let me ask you this: do the most powerful figures in history ask for respect, or do they command it? Machiavelli understood a brutal truth. People do not follow out of love. They follow out of fear, a carefully measured, perfectly controlled fear that does not breed hatred, but instead absolute submission. This is the one trick that guarantees obedience, a method used by kings, emperors, and leaders who shaped the world as they saw fit. A method that, once mastered, will make you impossible to defy. But be warned, power is a game of precision. Misstep, and you will fall, crushed beneath the very forces you sought to control. What you are about to learn has been hidden, distorted, and even condemned, not because it is false, but because it is too effective. Power is not won through kindness. It is seized through strategy. Machiavelli did not invent this truth. He merely exposed what had always existed, but was too unsettling for the weak to accept. For centuries, rulers have understood what ordinary men refuse to see: that power is never given, only taken. That those who cling to morality while their enemies wield force are not virtuous. They are victims. From the pharaohs of ancient Egypt to the warlords of feudal Japan, from the Roman emperors to the modern-day elites, one rule remains unchanged. The strong impose their will, and the weak obey. But what makes a leader truly unchallenged? What separates those who command from those who plead? Machiavelli's answer is chilling in its simplicity: fear, but never hatred. He observed history with brutal clarity. Those who were only loved were overthrown, and those who were hated were assassinated. But those who walked the fine line, who made themselves feared without being despised, held power for lifetimes. The Roman Emperor Augustus, the first and greatest emperor of Rome, maintained absolute control, not by ruling with an iron fist, but by making his punishment swift, fair, and absolute. He crushed rebellion before it began, but rewarded loyalty generously. The result? A reign that lasted over 40 years. Contrast this with Emperor Nero, who, in his paranoia, sought to instill terror, but in doing so, bred resentment. His own guards turned against him. His name became synonymous with cruelty, and his rule collapsed in disgrace. Machiavelli saw this pattern repeat itself across history. He distilled it into an eternal formula: if you are too kind, you will be taken advantage of. If you are too cruel, you will be overthrown. But if you are feared, yet not hated, you will be obeyed. But how do you balance this razor-thin line? How do you make yourself respected without crossing into tyranny? The answer lies in one masterful trick, a strategy used by kings, CEOs, and warlords alike, one that guarantees compliance without rebellion. Machiavelli understood something that most leaders, even today, fail to grasp. Power is not maintained through constant control, but through strategic unpredictability. If people can predict your reactions, they can manipulate you. If they know where the line is, they will dance on the edge of it. But if they live in a state of calculated uncertainty, if they fear punishment, but never know exactly when or how it will come, they will never dare to challenge you. This is the trick that guarantees obedience. Think of a ruler, a CEO, a war general. What do the most successful ones have in common? They do not punish constantly. They do not rule with an iron fist every single day. Instead, they wait. They watch. They let their subjects, employees, or soldiers feel as though they have freedom. And then, when a line is crossed, when a betrayal occurs, when disobedience starts to fester, they strike with absolute force. But here's the key. The punishment must be unexpected, decisive, and final. If you punish too often, people become desensitized. If you punish too little, they stop fearing you. If you punish unpredictably, they will police themselves, fearing when the next strike may come. Machiavelli learned this from one of the most ruthless rulers of his time, Cesare Borgia. Borgia was not a king by birth. He was a predator who took power with his own hands. And he knew that to keep it, he had to eliminate threats before they had the chance to grow. When Borgia conquered a new region, he did something remarkable. He appointed a cruel enforcer, a governor so ruthless that the people began to despise him. This enforcer punished disobedience without hesitation, ruling with an iron fist. Then, when the time was right, Borgia executed his own enforcer publicly and brutally, leaving his body in the town square as a message. The people were shocked, relieved, and grateful. Their fear remained, but now it was directed at Borgia, not against him. This is Machiavellian mastery. Strike when necessary, and only when necessary. Your punishment must be severe enough to prevent further disobedience, but never so excessive that it turns people against you. This principle is not just for warlords and kings. It applies to anyone who wants control. In business, the CEO, who fires a high-level executive for disloyalty, ensures that no one else dares betray them. In personal relationships, the person who sets firm, non-negotiable boundaries ensures they are never disrespected. In politics, the leader who swiftly crushes a rebellion before it spreads maintains an iron grip on their people. And yet, there is a fatal mistake that weak leaders make. A mistake that destroys their authority, breeds rebellion, and ensures their downfall. Power is not lost in a single moment. It decays slowly, slipping through the hands of those too blind to see it rotting away. The greatest mistake a leader can make, the mistake that has led to the downfall of kings, emperors, and CEOs alike, is this: over-punishing or under-punishing. Machiavelli warns us, punish too little, and people will test your limits. Punish too much, and they will conspire against you. A leader must strike a delicate balance. Fail to do so, and you will not rule for long. There are only two ways to lose control. The weak leader. He wants to be liked. He avoids confrontation. He believes that kindness will earn him loyalty. But people mistake his kindness for weakness. They disobey, knowing there are no consequences. And when he finally tries to assert himself, it's too late. No one fears him, no one respects him, and his downfall is inevitable. The tyrant. He believes that fear alone is enough. He punishes harshly, unpredictably, excessively. He makes himself hated. And what happens to the hated ruler? He is overthrown. The moment his people see an opportunity, they rise against him. Because they do not just fear him, they despise him. True power lies in the middle. You must be feared, but not hated. Respected, but never taken for granted. The difference between a ruler who lasts and one who falls comes down to a simple principle. If people fear disobeying you, they will obey. If people hate you, they will plot against you. The trick is making people fear the consequences of disobedience, while never feeling personally attacked by them. This is why the most brilliant rulers never punish in anger. Their punishments feel inevitable, almost mechanical, not personal, but absolute. This is why Don, the Machiavellian boss, commanded respect. He punished when necessary, but he rewarded when earned. He was feared, but never hated. His employees obeyed because they knew stepping out of line had consequences. But they also knew loyalty would be recognized. Compare that to Steve, the weak boss, who let bad behavior slide, allowing his team to collapse into chaos. And then there's the tyrant boss, who punishes without reason, creating resentment that will one day explode against him. Machiavelli understood that people do not rebel against power. They rebel against injustice. Your power is safest when your authority feels inevitable. When people obey you, not because they are forced to, but because they believe they have no other choice. Every powerful figure in history, every king, every emperor, every warlord who kept his throne, followed one final rule: strike once, strike hard, then stop. Do not make threats. Do not offer second chances. Do not punish excessively. If a betrayal occurs, deal with it swiftly and without hesitation. But never let punishment become a habit. The more often you punish, the weaker your power becomes. This is how Machiavellian leaders stay in power for decades while others collapse in months. Not through constant cruelty, but through precision. And now, we come to the final piece of the puzzle, the part most people ignore. Knowing how to command obedience is one thing, but applying it in the real world, that's where true mastery begins. Power is useless if it cannot be applied. Knowledge of Machiavelli's principles means nothing unless you can translate them into action. So how do you command respect? How do you make people obey you? Not out of love, not out of blind loyalty, but because they fear the consequences of defiance. The answer lies in strategy, not force. A lion can tear its enemies apart, but it does not rule the jungle. The jungle belongs to the creature who knows how to control others without constantly using violence. Machiavelli teaches us that the most powerful leaders never rely on brute force alone. They rely on a calculated mix of authority, unpredictability, and psychological control. Step 1. Establish boundaries. Early, then enforce them. Weak leaders make rules but fail to enforce them. Strong leaders make few rules, but when those rules are broken, the consequences are absolute. In business, this means setting clear expectations for employees, then punishing failure immediately and decisively. In relationships, this means establishing what is and isn't acceptable, then walking away the moment a boundary is crossed. In leadership, this means never letting small acts of defiance go unpunished. If one person disrespects you, others will follow. Stop it before it spreads. If you allow disrespect once, you have set the precedent that it is allowed forever. Step 2. Punish in a way that cannot be ignored. The mistake most people make: they punish in a way that is too soft, too emotional, or too drawn out. Punishment must be public, so others learn the lesson; swift, so there is no room for debate; final, so it never happens again. The Machiavellian ruler does not argue. He does not plead. He does not negotiate. He strikes once, with absolute force, and then moves on as if nothing happened. The punished will remember, and more importantly, Everyone watching will remember a CEO who fires a disloyal executive without warning sends a message that betrayal will not be tolerated. A leader who publicly demotes a weak subordinate ensures that others will think twice before failing him. A man who walks away from disrespect without looking back makes sure no one ever dares test him again. Step 3. Keep people on edge, but never push too far. Remember, fear works when it is controlled, but push too far, and fear turns into hatred. To prevent this, you must balance uncertainty with generosity. The most dangerous leader is not the one who is always cruel, but the one who can be generous one day and merciless the next. A leader who rewards excellence but punishes failure creates followers who strive to impress him. A boss who gives bonuses but fires disloyal employees without hesitation is both feared and respected. A ruler who pardons one enemy but destroys another makes people desperate to stay on his good side. Your power must feel both dangerous and rewarding. People must obey you because they do not know whether defiance will be met with punishment or whether loyalty will be met with reward. Keep them guessing. Keep them nervous. Keep them under your control. Step 4. Never show emotion, only intent. The moment people see that you are ruled by your emotions, they will manipulate you. If they see anger, they will provoke you. If they see desperation, they will use it against you. If they see pity, they will take advantage of it. A true Machiavellian leader does not act emotionally. He acts strategically. Every punishment, every reward, every decision must feel inevitable, as if it is simply the way things must be. You do not beg for obedience. You do not force obedience. You create a world where obedience is the only logical choice. Step 5. Silence is your greatest weapon. Power is not just about what you say. It is about what you do not say. A weak man tries to prove his power by speaking too much, by threatening, by explaining himself. A strong man understands that the most terrifying thing in the world is uncertainty. When you say less, people overthink your words. People fear your next move. People do not know what you are thinking, which makes them desperate to please you. The most powerful leaders in history were the ones who spoke the least, but acted the most. If you take away nothing else from this lesson, remember this: set the rules early. Punish once, swiftly, and decisively. Never explain, never justify. Keep people in a state of controlled uncertainty. Speak less, act more. Machiavelli did not write The Prince as a book of theory. It was a survival guide, a guide for those who understand that in this world there are only two types of people: the ones who obey and the ones who are obeyed. Now the question is, which one will you be? In conclusion, power is not won by accident. It is not handed down through luck, nor granted to those who simply deserve it. It is taken, secured, and held by those who understand its true nature. Machiavelli's lessons are not comfortable. They are not kind. They do not fit within the illusion that the world is fair, but they are real. You now know the secret that separates those who lead from those who follow. People obey not out of love, but out of necessity. The one who controls rewards and punishment controls obedience. Fear, when properly managed, ensures loyalty without rebellion. The most powerful rulers strike once, strike hard, and then remain silent. And now, you face a choice. You can dismiss these truths. You can convince yourself that power can be earned through kindness, that fairness alone will grant you authority. But if you choose this path, do not be surprised when others those who understand Machiavelli's wisdom take what should have been yours. Or you can apply this knowledge. You can begin to wield power, not emotionally, but strategically. You can set the terms of obedience in your world, making defiance unthinkable, not through constant control, but through precise, deliberate action. Machiavelli never promised that power would be easy, but he proved, again and again, that those who master its laws will never bow to another. So ask yourself, will you be the one who obeys, or will you be the one who is obeyed?